What you just saw was a run-through my solo show at the Amos Eno Gallery in Bushwick, which is up through October 29th, 2023. And the title of this solo show is All's Legitimate Under the Sun. Now, I'm not going to be talking for the most part about my own art. This is a little bit different kind of a presentation. I'm going to try to make a connection between artistic creativity and the fourth dimension, which is not something that is popular these days. Not too many people talk about it, but I'm going to try to find a connection between the two. When I was in art school, there was a lot of talk about exactly what constitutes the art part of an artwork, because it was more or less the earlier days of found art, ready-mades, plaster casts of people. The question in art school was always, okay, which part is the art in a ready-made or in a found object? That is so difficult to explain, if you ever can. Just like the fourth dimension is difficult to describe, that you can only do it through using metaphors and analogies. So I'll give you an idea. Let's say that you have a piece of paper like this, and you have this side of the paper, and you have this side of the paper. So the fourth dimension, or where the art is in an artwork, would be the part in the middle. The part between this side of the paper and this side of the paper would be the fourth dimension, or the art part of the artwork. Let's define the three dimensions that we know of first, which involve space. Right? You have height, you have length, you have depth. Those are the three dimensions. The fourth dimension involves time. So anything that changes through time, like the plant world. The plant grows, it lives, it grows, it dies. Anything that involves time, starting with the plant world, involves a fourth dimension. Now, anything that involves a being that has inner feelings, inner sensations, starting with the animal world, that involves the fifth dimension, 5 dimensions. And any being that is self-aware, starting with human beings, that involves 6 dimensions. So, just so you get that straight. Now, I should add something here. There's an inverse relationship between the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensions and the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd dimensions. So that the 4th dimension loses a dimension. The 4th dimension loses a dimension of depth, so it's only 2-dimensional. Early cave dwellers, for example, drew pictures and painted pictures in caves that were on a flat surface, and they were flat figures, because instinctively they recognized that the imaginative consciousness is 2-dimensional. Okay, so the 4th dimension is 2-dimensional. The 4th dimension has 2 dimensions. It loses the dimension of depth. The 5th dimension is 1-dimensional because it also loses another dimension. And the 6th dimension has 0 dimensions. So if you can imagine, let's say in the 6th dimension, which is way out there, if you can imagine a point, and there's nothing except this point, right? There's nothing above or below, to the left, to the right, in the back, in the front. There's nothing but a point. Nothing exists except a point. And everything and everyone intersects this point. So now you have a starting point for what a 6th dimension involves. Okay, so far what I've said sounds pretty abstract. So I'm going to try to give you a couple of examples on how you can apply artistic creativity or the 4th dimension, what you can discover when you expand into a 4th dimension with a couple of examples. But before I do that, I need to give you a 2-minute tutorial on the distinction that needs to be made here between your belief or opinion of things, your understanding of the world, and having a knowledge of the world. Belief, understanding, and knowledge. Okay, so if you separate the human psyche into the feeling, thinking, and willing aspects, if you use mostly the feeling part of your nature, well, feelings and sensations are part of our inner world. So in practical life, all you can recognize, if you only use the feeling part, all you can do is have a belief, have an opinion, right? When you add thinking to feeling, well, thinking is universal because I can communicate a thought to somebody 10,000 miles away and they could understand 100% of my thinking, because thinking is universal, whereas feeling is personal. So when you add thinking, you can have an understanding of the world. And then thirdly, if you add your will, the will part of your nature, and if you can immerse yourself in a situation, experience it personally, now you can have knowledge of the world. And I'm not going to get into epistemology about what constitutes knowledge, but just so you know that feeling, thinking, and willing, those aspects of the psyche are directly connected to what you conclude, what you recognize, a belief, an understanding of the world, or knowledge of the world. So if somebody says to you, for example, how do you know that men landed on the moon, right? Is that the right question to ask in the first place? Because in order to have knowledge, complete knowledge of whether men landed on the moon or not, you would have to be up there with the astronauts. You would have to immerse yourself in their souls, in their spirit, in order to have knowledge of it, complete knowledge of it. So, but as long as you use your thinking powers, you could understand how it is that men landed on the moon. You don't have to have knowledge, you can have an understanding by using your thinking. Okay? So it follows then that you don't need to experience something in order to understand it, but you do have to use your thinking abilities to understand it. All right, so that's my little 2-3 minute introduction here. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of what you can discover when you expand into a fourth dimension, into a four-dimensional world, which involves time. You start to recognize that there are cycles and there are patterns. So, for example, some cycles last thousands of years, some cycles last hundreds of years, and there's one cycle that lasts 72 years. So, for example, a human lifespan, if you average it out over many thousands and thousands of years, over millions of people, is approximately, give or take, 72 years, a human lifespan. The heart beats 72 beats per minute if you average it out, more or less. I'll give you an example from astronomy. We all know this from school. There are 12 constellations around us. The steady constellations, the 12 signs of the zodiac signify the 12 constellations around us. Now the sun, every time that it rises in the morning, it rises over a certain spot, but every day, every 24 hours, it falls behind a little bit in relation to the 12 constellations. So after X amount of years, the sun rises over a different constellation until eventually the sun makes an entire circle around all 12 constellations. It's called a Platonic year, and a Platonic year lasts more or less 25,920 years. When the sun falls behind one of these constellations, 2,160 years have passed. And when the sun falls behind, as it rises in the sky, seemingly behind the 12 constellations. When it falls behind 1 degree, then 72 years have passed. All right? Now, originally, the sun and the rest of the stars traveled in unison. But when human beings first appeared, that's when the sun lost a little bit of time in relation to the constant constellations. That's how the saying came about, that man was born out of time. Human beings appeared, and the sun lost 72 years every 1 degree of this 360-degree circle. Right? Now, I'm going to give you a couple of political comparisons here of what you can discover, what kind of cycles you can discover when you kind of jump into the imaginative consciousness of artists, or in real life into fourth dimension. So in October of 1917, there took place in Russia what's called the Bolshevik Revolution. Right? It happened in October 1917. If you move ahead 72 years, you have 1989, which was the beginning of the end of communism when the wall came down. Now, communism existed before that. It's going to exist. It exists after 1989, obviously. But you can pinpoint, in this sense, this 72-year period between the Bolshevik Revolution and the beginning of the end of communism, 1989. All right, I'm going to give you one more example, political example from here in the United States. You can say, in a certain sense, that the United States became the focal point of Western European culture at the end of World War II. So that would put us in 1945. All right? So if you move ahead 72 years, you have 2017. And we know what happened in 2017, and Donald Trump took over and is trying to dismantle the United States, American democracy, right? Now, this cycle, this 72-year cycle, where the United States is the focal point of Western European culture, it's going to dissolve no matter what. So Trump is trying to do it destructively, and Biden, by the way, is also doing it, but constructively. And when I say that we're living in a Western European cultural epoch, remember that there was a Greco-Roman cultural epoch, there was an Egyptian, Chaldean, Babylonian cultural epoch. There's always a cultural epoch that's going on. The one we're in has the emphasis in Western and Northern Europe. And the United States is an offshoot of that for 72 years as the focal point. Obviously, the United States existed before 1945, and it's going to continue after 2017. But as far as the central point of Western European culture, that part I contend is over, and we're just trying to dissolve America as a focal point, not democracy, but America as the focal point. Between these 2 years, 1945 and 2017. All right, I'm going to give you another example, and this one is more esoteric, and you're going to have to follow closely and stick with me. It's only going to take 5 minutes, and I'll put everything together at the end so that it'll make some sense at the end. But stick with me, please. On this side. In culture, there's always been a trinity. So in Hinduism, there's the three gods, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. In ancient Egypt, the trinity consisted of Osiris, Isis, and their son Horus. Right? In our time, we have another trinity. We have Father, Son, Holy Spirit. There's no religion involved here. I'm just relating what's already out there. Now, imagine then that you have human beings here, and at the periphery you have this trinity of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. In between humanity in this trinity, there are what are called lesser gods. And they range from angels and archangels to cherubs and seraphim. There's 9 of them. Right? So there's nine celestial hierarchies between humans and this Holy Trinity, this Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Right? And each one of these 9 celestial hierarchies has a function, a particular function. So now if we go to the 4th hierarchy, past beyond the human scale, beyond humanity, the 4th hierarchy, celestial hierarchy, in English they're called powers, right? Now we have, we're living in a form of consciousness that we can describe as wakeful consciousness, right? We're not living in some kind of catatonic stage or a dream stage or a dreamless sleep stage. The form of consciousness that we're living through is wakeful. You can describe it as wakeful consciousness, right? Keep this in mind now with hierarchies. The 4th hierarchy that are called powers in English, their task is to give form to consciousness. So they're called beings of form or spirits of form, right? They're the 4th level beyond the human level. They don't create consciousness, they don't give it form. Because they give form to all kinds of substances, including consciousness. So in order to create this condition of consciousness, wakefulness, you need an even higher power. And that would be left to the 7th level beyond the human level. They're called thrones. But the 4th level are called, in Hebrew, there's a word that's used in the book of Genesis. And the term is Elohim. Whenever you come across the term Elohim, it's a reference to these higher beings, which are called, the Greeks called them exousia. In Hebrew they're called Elohim. And in English they're called powers. They give form to substance. All right? Now, every condition of consciousness has a different condition, can be activated in a different condition of life. And the condition of life that we're living through could be represented by the mineral kingdom. All right? So we're living under the condition of life that is represented by the mineral kingdom. It's not the plant kingdom or the animal kingdom, it's the mineral kingdom. If we were represented by the plant kingdom, everything would be moving and changing, and everything would be born and living and dying, and we wouldn't be able to stand on solid ground because everything would be alive. So you can describe the condition of life that we're living through as the mineral kingdom, condition of life. And then finally, every condition of life can exist under different conditions of form. And the condition of form we're living through is described as the physical condition of form. And in ancient documents, this physical condition of form is described as the physical world expanding all around us in all its splendor, in all its glory, let's say. Right? So when you put all this together, whenever you read the words or hear the words, and again, there's no religion involved here. This is what you can discover when you, if you expand into a 4th dimension. Whenever you read the words or hear the words, thine is the power, the kingdom, and the glory. That's what's being referenced. The condition of consciousness we're living in, the condition of life we're living through, and the condition of form we're living through. So the words that you hear are, thine is the power, the kingdom, and the glory. So that's where it comes, in religion, this is where it comes from. So there you have it. I'm going to give you a bonus example of what happens when you can penetrate the fourth dimension. All right, so we know Darwin's sequence, chronological sequence in evolution. And in a nutshell, of course, you have the mineral, or let's say stones, you have plants, you have animals, and you have humans in that chronological sequence. That let's say we know that, or we understand that from Darwin's theory of evolution. When you expand into a fourth dimension, let's say everything turns upside down and inside out. So what you can observe turns out to be the opposite of this chronological sequence. This sequence is valid, but if you expand beyond it, what you see first is the human, nothing but humans. The next step, but not in physical form. The next step is you see the animal world, but not in physical form. Then come plants and then minerals, not in physical form. Then comes the Darwinian chronological sequence. Then you see the mineral world, or rocks and stones, in physical form. Then plants in physical form. Then animals, and then humans in physical form. So you expand your view. You keep the view that you have from science or theory, but you expand so that your view, sometimes it's completely turned upside down and inside out. So I wanted to present that to you. Artists normally work under imaginative consciousness, and their artwork reflects that. But you can do that by expanding to a fourth dimension. You can do that in everyday life. You can come up, you can observe all kinds of things outside the art world, which is also within the art world, but artists are mostly not conscious, not entirely conscious about why they do what they do. So they're in imaginative consciousness, but subconsciously only, not in full consciousness. All right, so I just wanted to find that connection between art and the fourth dimension. So thank you very much for your patience, and we'll talk again next time. Thank you.